So today we're going to talk about the new 12-team college football playoff format. We'll look at the positives, we'll take a look at the negatives, and then I'll mention a few observations I've made while studying this new playoff plan. First off, we'll start with the positives. My gosh, the money. The money. It is estimated that the new playoff format will bring in over $2 billion per year for FBS football teams. 80% of that $2 billion will go to the Power 5 schools, and it's expected that 20% will be distributed to the G5 schools. Now, as a frame of reference, under the current 4-team playoff system, Power 5 conferences are estimated to get about $70 to $75 million each during the 2022-2023 season. Under this new format, those power conferences will receive about $320 million apiece. So this is a significant increase of money. And quite frankly, I don't know anyone who could turn down $2 billion per year. So if you're wondering, man, why is this happening? Why are we expanding? The money is always the place to start. And there's a lot of it in this new playoff system. Positive number 2, improved December scheduling. In our current college football universe, December football is pretty poor. Once the conference championships end in early December, you've got the Army-Navy game and then kind of nothing for about 2 weeks. And then the bowls start after mid-December. In the expanded playoff universe, we're going to have a December full of great college football. And that'll be divided across 4 different rounds of playoffs. So we're going to have a complete month full of playoff madness. And quite frankly, that's going to be hard to beat. That will be a dramatic improvement over the 3 playoff games we get now and the relatively paltry December schedule. Positive number 3, last certainly not least, guaranteed G5 access to the playoff. If you're not aware, this new 12-team format breaks down as follows. The top 6 ranked conference champions are guaranteed a space in the playoff. Well, there's only 5 power conferences, so that means the highest ranked G5 conference champion will get the automatic invite into the new playoff system. A lot of people are happy about that. So starting in 2024, at least one G5 team is guaranteed to be included in every playoff every single year. Now, those are impressive, and those are very nice, positive aspects of this new system. But it makes me wonder, okay, what are the negatives? What are the downsides to this expansion? Well, the first negative is we're going to get a watered-down regular season. Because inside this playoff will be no shortage of 2-loss and even 3-loss teams. Now, in the past 50 years or so, it would be an absurdity for a 3-loss team to even consider being in contention for a national championship. And it was a very, very rare occurrence for a 2-loss team to ever be in that conversation as well. But under the new playoff format, it will be very common to have 2-loss and 3-loss teams playing for the national championship. So, for example, let's pretend this new 12-team format is put into place this year. In 2022, here are the 12 teams that would make the college football playoff in order of ranking. And if you look at this listing of teams, you'll notice the majority of them have either 2 or 3 losses. So 2/3 of our national title contenders will have either 2 or 3 losses on their record. Now, that kind of showing right now would almost automatically disqualify any team from competing for a national championship. But under this new system, 2-3 losses, that's no problem. This kind of weakening of the regular season, it could be a troublesome spot for the sport because college football is well known for having the very best regular season in all of sports. Now, for those who say that somehow it doesn't weaken the regular season and everything will be exactly the same, let me ask you this. Do you support Alabama? being in the playoff this year. Now, right now, the majority of people on the planet who are not Bama fans look at Bama in the playoff this year as a punchline. It's a joke. It's actually been parodied on SEC shorts. That's how big of a joke it is. And the majority of college football fans agree with this being a joke because Alabama has not done enough this year to warrant inclusion in the playoff system. So having established that as fact, if you don't support Bama being in the playoff this year, how can you justify them being in the expanded playoff? Well, the only way you can do that is by admitting that the regular season just won't mean as much in this new system. Negative number 2, in addition to having a watered-down regular season, by its very nature, this 12-team format will feature a watered-down playoff as well. And let's click over and take a look at the playoff if it were happening this year. Is anyone crying for Clemson or Utah to be in the playoff this year? Is anyone wringing their hands because Penn State or USC or Tulane didn't make the cut to play for the national championship? I have heard nothing about anyone complaining about these teams not being included in this year's playoff. And that's no disrespect to those respective fan bases. They had good to very good seasons. But as it stands now, they did not make the grade to play for a national championship. In this new format, they did make the grade to play for it. Therefore, this new playoff system is watered down. The quality just isn't the same. We sacrifice that for quantity. Finally, negative number 3, what happens when the novelty wears off? What happens when the new format has lost its newness and it's not a shiny new toy anymore? Will we still want to play? Interestingly, you look at the ratings for the Georgia-Alabama championship game from a year ago, they were the second lowest rated championship game since the playoffs started in 2014. Now, some of the reasons listed were, well, both teams were from the same conference, it was a rematch from just a few weeks before, and people just didn't want to see the same game played over again. Well, in this 12-team format, there's a good chance that a rematch is going to occur. And I don't know how fans will take to that. I especially don't know how they'll take to it 5, 6, 7, 10 years from now. You have to wonder, after the newness wears off, are people still going to be as interested in the 12-team format as they were at the beginning? So those are pretty significant negatives to this playoff expansion. And pretending like they don't exist or trying to bully people into not talking about them doesn't make them go away. And it doesn't improve the weaknesses that are inherent in this new expanded format. So bearing that in mind, the first observation I have to make is actually a recommendation. And that recommendation is to have the second round games, the quarterfinal matchups, played on campus. The top 4 conference champions receive a bye in this expanded playoff format. I believe those conference champions should host their first game in this playoff. And my reasoning is this. It is an inducement, it's an encouragement to have as strong a regular season performance as you can possibly have. Having that home field advantage through the second round is priceless. And I think that will help maintain the integrity of the regular season, even in this expanded 12-team format. The second observation I have based on this new playoff schedule is that it will hasten the arrival of super conferences. As we're looking at regular season matchups, and records aren't as important as they used to be. Going undefeated or having one loss, not as important as it used to be. A natural consequence of this will be, okay, I want to get a strength of schedule edge. If I can have 2 or 3 losses and still make it in, I want to have a very strong regular season schedule. And the best way to do that if I'm a team is to join a super conference, because then you'll be guaranteed to have a strong schedule. And if you get 2 or 3 losses along the way, that's no big deal because you played some of the best teams in the country. And that's only going to hasten the formation of super conferences. We've got the Big, we got the SEC. I suspect there'll be at least one more truly super conference develop as a result of this new playoff format. Observation number 3, as these super conferences come into fruition, it makes it much more likely we're going to have conference playoffs come into being as well. Because when your conference starts getting to 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, that big of a conference, that many teams involved, it's going to be tough just to pick out the top 2 to play for a title. So I expect super conferences to have an internal 4-team playoff develop at some point in their evolution. And that could be several years away. That could be 10 years away. But as these conferences grow bigger and bigger, it's going to be almost impossible just to pick the top 2 teams to play in a conference title game. That's why I think you'll see eventually, perhaps even at the end of this 12-team format, a new system start to develop where conferences themselves will have an internal playoff, and then their champions will go on to play in a smaller tournament for the national title. So we'll see how long this 12-team format is in existence. If we're looking at recent history, I'd say 10 years would probably be a pretty good estimate. And then at that point, I think things will change again. The 12-team format, though, is going to be an interesting experience for college football fans. I'm looking forward to it overall, despite my reservations. I think on the whole, it's going to be positive. It's going to be interesting, as long as college football does not throw away its wonderful and beautiful regular season. This is Kevin Newsom in Texas saying God bless each and every one of you. Hopefully you enjoyed this analysis. I love hearing what you have to say. Feel free to leave as many comments as you like, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.